As famous TV chef and personality Cookie Monster once said, C is for cookie, and that's good enough for me. Unfortunately, not all of us are so easily satisfied, especially when it comes to politics. And because of this, it makes sense that Democrats in 2016 weren't exactly satisfied with the results of the election. However, in 2018, it seems that they made a comeback by electing more women and racial minorities to Congress than ever before, according to a Pew Research Center analysis from 2018. However, in 2020, the Democratic strategy seems to have changed from a focus on diversity to a focus on electability, or the idea that some candidates are simply more likely to win an election than others. And this is in line with what voters believe as well, because according to a 2019 poll from Hart Research Associates and Public Opinion polls, the number of voters who say that they prefer an electable candidate has doubled since 2016. As a woman who is both deeply invested in politics and has competed in several civics competitions in the past, I find it necessary that we ask the question: should voters be turning to electability to choose which candidates to support? And the answer is absolutely no. Electability is a flawed idea, and it justifies bias against women and people of color. To answer why this is, we'll first analyze how this idea leads to discrimination, before second, finding ways to combat the electability bias. So to determine why this idea leads to discrimination, we first have to analyze how electability is viewed in the eyes of the American electorate. And to do that, we can look at which candidates ran under the idea of being electable in 2020. From the pictures on the screen, it should be pretty obvious what the common factors are. 1 being white, 2 being male, and 3 being moderates. But do these characteristics actually make you more likely to win an election? That's a harder question to answer, so we'll do it by each part. First, on race. Being white does not make you more likely to win an election, according to an analysis by Ferdowsi and Rogowski conducted in 2015. Because whereas white people are more hesitant to support racial minorities, racial minorities will come out to the polls in much greater numbers for a fellow person of color. Second, on gender. Similarly, men are not more likely to win an election than women, and in fact, according to an NBC analysis conducted in 2018, women were actually more likely to win their primaries than men were. And finally, on the issue of ideology. Moderates aren't more likely to win either, because otherwise, how would we have extremists like President Donald Trump or Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez in office? So if this idea is so wrong, why is it so pervasive? Well, this comes down to 2 factors. First, history. Historically speaking, the majority of our presidents have been both white and male. So because of this, when we picture something presidential, we picture a white man. The second way this has become a pervasive element of our society is through bias and discrimination. In fact, according to a Benenson Strategy Group poll conducted in 2019, the majority of Americans have heard the media talk about how women and racial minorities are unelectable. Because of this, it creates a self-perpetuating cycle, where the more the media believes a candidate to be unelectable, the more the people believe it to be true, which causes the media to talk about it more. So, now that we've established that electability is both a flawed concept and discriminatory towards men, or towards women and people of color, we should analyze how we can fix it. And this change needs to start from 3 different groups of people. First, from party officials, second, from voters, and finally, from women and minorities themselves. First, let's talk about party officials. This is the biggest barrier to entry, because party officials simply don't recruit women and people of color because they don't think they're electable, as an analysis by Lawless and Fox in 2012 concluded. In fact, if we look to an Alabama primary challenger, Ada Winfrey, in 2018, in an interview with Refinery 29, she says that a party official told her not to run because you can't win. You're black. Because of this, we must make a conscious effort to have party officials start recruiting more diverse candidates. Second, let's talk about what voters are doing and can do to combat this issue. Voters need to start focusing on more concrete ideas about what it means to be qualified to win. Not about likability or electability, or how somebody makes you feel when they talk, but instead about plans, experience, and past actions. things that are equal across both group men, women, or white people and people of color. The final thing that we need to do in order to change this perspective is that women and racial minorities need to start believing in their own chances. Because if women and people of color aren't being supported by other women and people of color, then they'll never believe they can win, and so they won't win. Organizations like Emily's List, Run for Something, and Higher Heights for America are a good starting point, but we need broad solidarity in order to change this trend. So, when we answer the question, should voters be turning to electability to choose which candidates to support? The answer is absolutely not. Electability is a flawed and biased concept that promotes discrimination against women and people of color. And so if we're able to change your ideas about electability into more of a tangible concept over who is qualified and who isn't, well, then maybe we can have our cookie and eat it too.